So most of you watching this video are running a book a call funnel for your info business. Almost every single marketer is telling you to run a book a call funnel, to run a VSL funnel, or maybe even a profile funnel, because you're told they're the simplest way to scale. You create a page, you put up a VSL, you put a Typeform or a Calendly embed on that page, you push traffic to it, you create content, you run ads. But simple to start doesn't mean simple to scale. So if you're already over 30K per month, 50K per month, is the exact reason why your lead quality is dropping, the leads have low intent, and you're getting low show rates. Today, I'm gonna use this Miro board to compare the 3 main types of funnel you can run in 2026. And I'm gonna show you the actual math of why webinar and challenge funnels will outperform any other type of funnel in 2026, and how it's the only way that you can scale to over 100K per month without losing your sanity. So let's start with the traps that people fall into. So you see someone that's leading in your industry, in your niche, they're either running a profile funnel or a VSL book a call funnel. And so you copy them. You copy what everyone else is doing because it must be working. Now, the biggest problem with the profile funnel is that whoever's leading in the industry is always going to have a larger piece of the pie when it comes to profile funnels. Not only that, they already have money. They already have the results. They already have tons of testimonials. Their profile is already super optimized. They have tons of content. So no wonder they can make 100, 200, 300K from the profile funnel. Now, obviously, they're putting tons of money into ads. But also, the biggest reason why you see these people, these industry leaders in their niche, hitting those 200, 250K months with a profile funnel is because they're able to charge so much. If you can charge 10, 15, 20K, it's not that difficult to get to those kind of levels as if you're an industry leader. But for someone that's maybe new, maybe you've only been doing info for 6 to 12 months, or you're in a market where there's quite a lot of competition, there's nothing that's going to make you stand out that much in your profile, right? The lifestyle, it doesn't sell the way it used to. People are much more aware of the industry now. So we have to use different mechanisms in order to convert people. And so the profile funnel, yes, it's great if you just want to do 20, 30, 40K per month. But if you want to scale beyond that, it's almost not possible unless you start putting money into ads. Again, you might add an extra 20K, 30K there, but it gets to a point where you're spending more on ads, but you're not getting more leads back. So the profile funnel is great, it's just not scalable. And I'm a big believer in start as you mean to go on. Why start with a profile funnel at first just because maybe it's a little bit easier in the beginning? But again, then you're a slave to content, right? You have to be making content non-stop, and you have to have a very good profile that's optimized in order to be successful with a profile funnel. So eventually you do actually reach that point where you're spending more on ads, but you're not actually getting more leads out of it. And so at this point, if you're not already running a VSL funnel, you then move on to a VSL funnel where you put the link in your bio and you try and push traffic there, or you start running ads to that VSL, making content, pushing it to the VSL. And that comes with a new set of problems. If you're already running a VSL funnel, you know what this is. Your leads have low intent, you have low show rates, you have low quality. And the main reason is because it's so easy for people to go through that funnel. People, again, are much more aware these days of how these funnels work. So even if you have a Typeform that maybe qualifies people, they're soon going to find out that they can answer one thing on the Typeform in order to book a call, even though they might be qualified. They start lying about their budgets. And all they need to do, let's be real, right? You're either running a VSL funnel with an opt-in page or without one. If you're running one with an opt-in page, they go to the opt-in page, they put in their name, email, phone number, they watch a 10-minute video, half the time they don't even watch it, and then they book a call. So they're coming onto the calendar with your sales team without even really knowing too much about you, about your mechanism. They probably do want to make more money. Everyone wants to make more money. But what this leads to, again, is low intent, low show rate, lower close rate, and ultimately making it harder to scale. Because again, you're spending money on ads, but you're not getting the best return for your money. Why? Because you're getting tons of low intent leads. Not only that, you just look like everybody else. Everyone is running an opt-in to a VSL, to a calendar, to a booked call, or to an opt-in, a video, a Typeform, and then a book a call. Everyone is doing it now. It's lost its edge. The friction, is too low, which means yes, you're going to book more calls, but again, the quality of the leads is much lower. They watch a 10-minute video, they book a call, but by the time it comes around to Tuesday, the day of the call, they've forgotten about it. And so this creates that low show rate death spiral. So you need a massive army of setters, you need a dialer team that you've got to pay, and constant management. You're probably even going to need a manager at some point to manage these people, or you're just spending all the time doing it yourself. So to handle the 50% of people who don't show up, it burns out your closers, right? It eats at your margins because you're having to spend more to try and get them back on the calendar. And ultimately, your closer's time is just not very well used, right? 50% of the time, 50% of their day is spending doing nothing, because let's be real, most closers aren't going to be following up with old leads or dialing to try and get leads on the calendar. They're probably just going to go and do something like go and have a coffee, or they might even go and try and find another offer. If you want to stop the burnout from you, from your closer, from your team, you want to stop chasing, you actually want to start attracting and move from low intent to high intent, you have to be running a webinar funnel or a challenge funnel. And here's why they convert at such a high rate. Firstly, it's the friction that comes with a webinar funnel. First of all, they go to your page, they see the information, they're going to register for the webinar. That might be 10 days out, 5 days out, 2 days out, 1 day out. By the time it comes to the webinar, yes, you're likely only going to have 40% of those people actually show up. And then the people that stay to the end, likely only going to be 80 to 90% of those people that stay to the end of the presentation. And from the end of the presentation, you're likely, again, only going to get around 25 to maybe 30% of people book. But those people that book, 80% of those, 90% of those are going to show up. And of those people that show up, 50% plus are actually going to pay or are going to close. Right, so you're talking 50, 60, 70% close rate. So let's say with a VSL funnel, you spend 5K on ads. So if you've got good ads, you're probably going to book a call on average around $150. Some niches is definitely going to be more. So on average, let's say you spend 5K, you book 34 calls at $500 each. Out of those 34 booked calls, that's going to be between 15 and 18K, right? Which is not bad. You spend 5K, you get 15 to 18K back. It's not bad at all, but you can do much better. If you're going to put that same budget into a webinar funnel, for example, this is what the numbers would look like. So you spend 5K, let's say your average cost per registration, which is typically what I see, let's even just say a round number, $10. I usually see less than that, but let's just say $10 on average. That's 500 people that have now registered for the webinar. Of those 500 people, let's say only 35% show up, okay? That's 175 people that then actually show up to the webinar. Of those 175 people, let's say only 150 make it to the offer. And then of those 150, only 30% of those people are then going off to book a call. So let's call it 45 people book a call. Of those 45 people that book a call, let's say only 80% show up. Let's just call it 35 people show up. But of those 35 people, half of those are going to close at the very least. So 17 people then buy at 3K average order value. Well, now you're looking at a return of not 15K, but you're actually looking at a return of more like 50K, right? Which would be a 10x return on ad spend. Now that is typical. That is what we are typically seeing on the campaigns that we're running right now. Obviously, if you start to spend more, or if you're in a more contested niche, then obviously it's going to look a little bit less than that. But even on a low or a harder niche, or kind of the higher spend, we're typically seeing a 5x return on ad spend compared to a 3x when running a VSL funnel. Now, I'm not saying just chuck your VSL funnel in the bin. If your VSL funnel is producing right now and it's working organically, then supplement it with a VSL funnel. Leave what's already working. Even your profile funnel, if it's doing 20K, 30K, 40K, 50K, don't change that. Keep that as it is, but then use the webinar funnel as another mechanism to scale to that next level. But the thing is, you need the systems in place in order to do that. If you are right now the bottleneck in your business, meaning that you're spending your full day working in the business instead of on the business, well then it's almost impossible for you to go and run a webinar funnel. So you need the right person or the right team in your business in order to allow what's already working to continue to work in, to tick away, bringing you that 30, 40, 50K, but then use this other mechanism to get you that extra 50, 100, 250, 500 grand, even $1 million, depending on what your goals are. Now, why do webinars convert at this level? It's because rather than people spending 10 minutes with you, they're spending a whole hour with you. They're able to ask questions. They're pre-sold. They're not just problem aware like they are when they watch your VSL. Yes, your VSL maybe are converting some people more to solution aware or product aware, but your webinar funnel will do that. It will take them from problem aware to solution aware to product aware to most aware, which is where you're going to get the highest level of conversion. Hence why you get such a high level of conversion. So you end up, obviously here, like I said, with between sort of 45 or 50K in revenue. You've just made, that's actually wrong, you've made way more than 13K. You've made an extra 30K compared to what you'd make if you was running a VSL funnel. So obviously the biggest reason why the webinars work so well is down to trust. You're able to build so much trust within those webinars, within those 60 minutes you're spending with them. And in 2026, trust is the only currency that's going to allow you to scale. Why? Because there's so many people in your niche already doing what you're doing. There's so many people that are already selling different types of info products, have different mechanisms. So if they can really trust you, believe what you do, believe in you, believe in your product, believe in your mechanism, then they're going to be much more likely to convert. And obviously when they're spending an hour with you, of course, they're going to convert at a much higher level. But here's the thing, even a great webinar, even someone that's amazing at presenting, even someone that has an amazing product, has an amazing offer, it will fail or it will stall if you don't have the correct data, if you don't have a way to find your bottlenecks. See, when it comes to scaling is all around finding bottlenecks, solving them, scaling to the next level, and then overcoming a new bottleneck. But if you cannot pinpoint exactly where in your funnel, your marketing system, your sales system, that leads are falling off the most, then you're not able to make the necessary changes to get to the next level. So without the right data, you're operating blind. Now, depending on the type of funnel that you are using, there's different data that's more important. But the kind of main things you're going to want to track is going to be your opt-in rate. That's very early in your funnel. Your cost per lead or cost per registration, your cost per booked call, your cost per shown call, your cost to acquire a customer are all going to be really, really important metrics. Again, depending on the type of funnel, there might be other metrics that are super important. Obviously, show rate is really important. But the earlier in the funnel, the bottleneck, the bigger knock-on effect it can have. But also, the smallest element or the smallest number within your funnel is always the easiest to fix, right? For example, if your show rate is 20% and your close rate is 50%, it's obviously much easier to double your show rate than it is your close rate. To double your close rate, you have to close everyone. To double your show rate, you only have to get it to 40%, which should be pretty easy. It should just be a matter of adding or removing friction or adding and removing emails, SMS messages in order to get people to show up. If your show rate was really that low, there's a massive issue. There's something that's really scaring off customers or potential customers. Again, I've put some of the stuff here on screen that could be important. Cancel rate's not so important, but it is going to show you your quality of lead. If you're getting a lot of cancelled, you're either getting booked in a ton of unqualified leads or there's something that's putting them off. So if you're a 30K, the chances are your messaging and your product is probably fine, right? Because people are buying it. The biggest bottleneck right now is that you don't actually know what the bottlenecks are within your business. And again, you are falling into that trap of following the industry leader. See, most founders, they don't know their speed to lead. They don't know their lead to booked call. They don't know their cost to acquire a customer. And when you don't know your cost to acquire a customer, you don't even know how much you should be willing to spend in order to get a client. So it always leads to emotional decisions and not data-backed decisions. And we know what happens if we make emotional decisions. We're probably not going to get very far. Now, if you're still watching this video and you want to run a webinar funnel yourself, maybe you even want to scale up with your VSL funnel, you want better systems in place, you want a way to be able to track your data. And by the way, if you don't have a way to track your data right now, that should be the very first thing you do, because that is your bottleneck. Your bottleneck is not knowing your bottlenecks. So if the stuff that I've been talking about in this video resonates with you, if you want to run a webinar funnel, if you want to just scale up with your current funnels, if you don't really know what your bottleneck is right now, you know you just want to scale and get to the next level, click the link below, book a call with me. I'll do a full audit into your business, tell you exactly what the bottlenecks are. If you don't have the data, I'll help you put together a system to track that data so I can tell you exactly what you need to do to get to the next level. And whether that be you want someone to just give you the guidance and you implement it, or you want someone to actually do all this for you, I can definitely help. So click the link below, book a call with me, and I will do a full audit of your business. Now, before we kind of round off this video, I just want to show you an example of a webinar that we ran for a client. And this was a webinar that we only spent $500 on. It was a client that had been burnt by someone else. They spent like £2,500 on a webinar and they got nothing back from it. So I said to them, look, I understand where you're at. Let's start from the beginning. Let's just start with a lower budget on the first webinar. Let's just put £500 into that webinar. And these are the results that we got. We had 700 people view the actual landing page. We had 64 people that actually registered for that webinar. An opt-in rate of around 9.1%, which isn't terrible. Could definitely be better, but it's not terrible for paid ads. Cash collected, £7,650. And actually since then, we closed someone else from that webinar for another £3,000, which actually brings it to over 10K. So we actually had 3 deals closed. An average order value, we did collect some deposits as well, was more around 3K to be fair on the actual sales. In terms of webinar attendees, we had about half of the people show up, 31 people showed up. But from those 31 people, 10 people booked a call. So we was actually booking calls for around £50. 8 of those calls showed up, and then actually 3 of them ended up closing. We took 2 deposits. So 5 of those people, 3 have already paid, 2 have made a commitment towards paying once their finances are in place. And so in terms of ROAS, we actually got around a 21x ROAS. They spent £500, they got 10.5K back, which obviously is amazing. If you could do that at scale, right? If you could spend 5K on ads and get 100 grand back, you'd be very, very, very happy. Now, generally at scale, those numbers are kind of not going to be the same. It's probably going to be a little bit less than that. But the reason why we was able to do that is because we had the data, we knew what we needed to change because from previous webinars, and we knew exactly who we should be targeting on these webinars. Now, this is another campaign that we ran where we spent a little bit more. So our ROAS are not as good on this particular one, but we spent $10,000 on ads, as you can see here, and then we got around 61 grand back, around 51,000 in profit, which isn't bad. Almost 6x ROAS on those kind of spends, not bad, and there's definitely things we could have improved. So hope you enjoyed that video, guys. Hope this helped. Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to drop a comment below. Feel free to drop me a DM on Instagram if you have any further questions. And if you want to learn more about how a webinar funnel can help you scale to that 100K, 200K, 300K, or even beyond that, just book a call with me below. Catch you in the next one.